The modern challenges of mental health are very simple if you understand how human personalities are formed in childhood. Human personalities are very much the same things that animals utilize to survive the natural world. That we are the offspring of the animal kingdom, essentially apes, that were imbued with this profound gift of the brain that became a profound evolutionary advantage that enabled us to more accurately model our behaviors to cater to an evolving ecosystem. While our brain has so many more capabilities, the structures of our brain in terms of what gives us our experience of our day-to-day living of our life is no different than that of a rabbit or a lion or a chimpanzee. Our intelligence, which was this profound evolutionary advantage, runs a great risk of being the very evolutionary dead end that most people could observe in the current state of human affairs. And the main problem is that as we have used our intelligence to rapidly develop a more industrialized civilization, where we have bifurcated ourselves from the natural order, we have failed to account for the profound impact that this has on the development of human beings. And we have created a monumental problem: the proliferation of mental health issues resultant from the raising and rearing of children. Children that can be isolated in environments that are unnatural, like houses, condominiums, and apartments, left to be developed by parents that they themselves were developed by parents, who they themselves were developed by parents, who had mental health issues. And so when your behavioral patterns, when your emotional patterns that were meant to imbue you with patterns that would empower the successful navigation of reality, were now developed to survive an environment that was unnatural because of the mentality of the parents, you now have great trouble navigating a more complicated society. When you look at, say, an animal in nature, its behavior, its psychology is being molded and modeled by reality. It's really meant to empower their survival. You see, the brain, the consciousness that we experience is a vast realm of possibility. And that, in and of itself, if a child was born and you look at a child as they develop, there's a point where they are just a pure being, where they don't have any notions of self. They don't have imbued identity. They're just, their eyes are open, their ears are open, they're running around, they're taking it all in. Then there are original moments of experience where something happens, the first trigger. This becomes the basis of identity, where the child experiences that there's something wrong here, something wrong with me. I'm not good enough, therefore I need to be something different. They get imbued with patterns of thought, interpretation, and behavior that are meant to model reality. But when the reality you modeled is surviving narcissistic abuse or a parent with other forms of mental illness, that becomes the behavioral patterns and the emotional boundaries that take the expanse of what's possible within the conscious mind and reduces it to a multiple choice proposition, which is what it's supposed to do. Because the human being in just pure consciousness has no limitations, that the thoughts could be arbitrary and random. That if you were in a given situation, you can go left, right, up, down. You can say hello. You could say goodbye. You can say anything. You could start reciting poetry. You could take your clothes off, run down the street naked. That there are no inherent limitations on what a conscious being could arbitrarily choose to do. And so within that expanse of consciousness, the personality is a structure that needs to use powerful emotions to then contain the consciousness in order to imbue it with a more accurate decision-making apparatus. Decisions that would be guided by emotions that come from the past. It's pattern recognition, the same thing animals must do. A lion must be able to differentiate between a gazelle and a hyena. And it has to be able to use its mind to understand the implications of those two organisms coming into its field of view. It'll be triggered into a fight or flight or predatory response. And the anxiety and stress of that experience is merely mitigated through the destruction of the other organism or running away from the other organism. And the human mind is developed to be exactly the same way, that we live in a perception of reality where we objectify threats. In our case, we imbue those threats with language, interpretation, context. Because of the profound power of our mind, rather than seeing a lion and being triggered into fight or flight, you can see a pattern that resembles a devaluing mother, disapproval, disappointment, failure. And you get triggered into a state of being that has mitigated that experience in the past, that you want to be perfect, you want to be nice, you want to be analytical, you want to be strong. And so these personality traits that become our identity, that persist over time, they persist over time because of the ongoing reinterpretation, the patternization of an external world that we survive in perpetual vicious circles of experience. Merely living with the cognitive illusion of happiness someday in the future as the carrot dangling on one side to promote a behavior, with the catalyst of failure, suffering, and being not good enough, compelling the being. Because imagine if a children never had that. Imagine if a child just never got imbued with fear, never got imbued with sadness, despair, a sense of failure, a sense of being inadequate. There would be no motive for ongoing development. There would be no motive to strive. There would be no motive to achieve, no motive to assert oneself in the hierarchy of a broader society. And so the aspirations of human identity are a survival mechanism meant merely to compel our ongoing survival in the natural world. It's just that in modern life, this evolutionary advantage of intelligence resulting in space travel, resulting in nuclear medicine, resulting in the hydrogen bomb, has been proliferating society to a degree where it is out of balance with nature, and including our social living in this concrete jungle we've invented, where we've converted people into consumers, into individuals and family units, where the community has been stripped away. And rather than being developed to engage a natural world with behaviors that imbue patterns that would increase the likelihood of success and survival, we have been imprinting children with no consideration for the fulfillment of that individual within homes, within schools, that foster notions of self of being broken, not good enough. And as we've converted human beings into consumers that will live out lives trying to assert identity, trying to find themselves, trying to fix themselves, trying to perfect themselves in a perpetual vicious cycle, lacking all semblance of fulfillment, we're simply failing to address the realities of the nature of how people develop psychology, and we are not addressing it successfully on a social scale.